All right, so maybe I'll just get started. If everybody can mute for now, but there are going to be lots of interactive moments throughout the presentation. So whenever I call out on some sort of response, feel free to unmute. I think we're a small enough audience that we can do that. Or if you want, you can use the chat, either or, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And also, just let me know if I'm speaking too fast. English is my first language, but I know it's not the first language for everybody at all. So if there's any words or anything that you feel as if, okay, you feel uncomfortable with or you don't quite understand, I can always rephrase it, and I can always slow down the rate of speech too. So you don't have to worry. We're going to keep this a very open space and a fun space. So feel free to say what's on your mind as we go along. All right, so we're going to talk about building momentum today. And so we're going to build momentum, more specifically, how to create social change. How can you create a program for yourself or for others that continues with this momentum that builds towards something that's strong socially? So keeping that in mind, the very first thing that I would like all of you to do is identify the problem. So is there a problem that really speaks to you? So there's a problem that really speaks to me, and that's sort of what we're focused with New to Sweden. But that's not necessarily true for everybody. Everybody's going to have something else that really that you feel very strongly about. So think about that. It could be about climate change. It could be global poverty. It could be disease. You could talk. You could think about food shortages or education. Whatever it is, identify what that problem is that you feel really passionate about. What is it that you feel really strongly about that you think you might be able to help combat? And identify it. So, who can guess what my problem is? What's the problem that I would like to tackle, that I like to combat? And it has something slightly, it doesn't have to do with the penguins, but it has to do almost like with what this penguin on the left is thinking. Or what do you, so what do you guys think it is? Like, what do you think the problem is that I would like to tackle? Any guesses from the room? Someone cleared your throat. You got to say something. Whoever did that. So, are there any responses in the chat? If not, I'm going to keep pushing forward.
No, but let me try. I don't know, to start guessing. If the left one you said, the left penguin.
You know what? That's a misleading penguin.
It's a misleading one, okay. But he's trying to be heard, maybe? I don't know.
Raises up. It's almost like, yeah, it's like good guess, Anastasia. It's almost like, to me, this picture really embodies it. It's just some penguin just, or somebody just yelling at somebody else for no apparent reason. And that's what racism is to me. It doesn't make any sense at all. And that was my lens. Like, that's what I want to talk about today, while still talking about what your focuses will be to try to create your own momentum and to do something monumental within your own lives. So when I talk about racism, so before we start talking about like all the dark, evil, bad stuff, I'm going to talk to you about like the good stuff, because I want to take you through a journey of how I grew up and where I grew up. So I'm going to talk about that very quickly. We're going to focus on the good stuff first. So the good stuff is that I was born in Montreal, which is a beautiful city in Canada. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to visit Montreal anytime in the past, but it's one of the best places I think that you can visit as a tourist. They have great summer festivals. There's lots of music going on most of the time. There's like a jazz festival. There's a Just for Laughs comedy festival. There's lots of greenery, lots of parks. It's sort of like Stockholm in that way. It's a very beautiful green city. So just some quick facts. First of all, that person over there is me. And my dad moved to Canada in 1972. So he was one of the very early immigrants, I would say, especially from South India to Canada. And he literally jumped off the ship. So he was working on a boat. The boat docked in Halifax. He got off the boat with nothing in his hand, and he never went back onto the boat. And that's basically how he immigrated to Canada in 1972. He took this huge risk. I think he was one of the first South Indian immigrants. I can just say that based on visual facts. Every time you look around when I was growing up, there was nobody else like us. Me and my brother were both born in Canada, so we were both born in Montreal in the late 70s. So at the time when we were growing up, Montreal was predominantly white. It was a very white city. There weren't too many people who were of color. So that's kind of like the good stuff. But that last indicator there is kind of hinting towards what I'm going to talk about next, which is the bad stuff. So all that fire and brimstone, now we're going to talk about that, what it's like to grow up as somebody of color in a city where you're the minority rather than in the majority. So these are the different things I experienced growing up. I was called the N-word many times. I was likened to mud, dirt. I was told to take a bath all the time, even just because of the color of my skin. Some people who thought they were being more positive, likened my skin to chocolate. People said they could only see my teeth when I smiled. And these were some of my friends who said that. I remember that very clearly. We'd be playing somewhere and then they would ask me to smile if we're in a dark area. I've had school bags thrown on the floor of the bus for no reason, just sitting there or standing there, both on the public bus and on school buses. I've had gum thrown in my hair, and this could be, like regular bullies doing whatever they do. But I found out later that this person, no, he was insulting me through the rest of the year during the 5th grade for my color. And then this one's the one that sticks with me the strongest. We were kids playing in a park, so I was probably like 7, 8 years old. And two random men called my mom and my sister over and asked if they wanted to see their white power tattoo. So this is all like in the 80s and in the 90s in the Montreal area. Like this is in Canada where there's a lot of immigration, a lot more people of color were coming in, but this type of thing was still existing, not 20 to 30 years ago. So all this type of stuff is what I would like to blame on just something like a very simple concept, but just the randomness of birth. So I'm not religious, and it's okay if you are, but I don't believe in destiny or anything like that. And I think that we're all just born into this world, and it's completely random where you are born and in what circumstance or situation that you are born. And I can say this with, like great certainty. I was born to a family in Canada where my dad, took that risk and moved to Canada when I was born there. But for other people, like including my cousins, including my relatives, they didn't have that. They were born to a relatively poor village in India. Had, barely any running water, all that sort of stuff. But we were lucky and we were born into privilege because we were born in Canada. And I think that's the same for absolutely everybody in this world. So you can be lucky enough to have been born into a family. Not even you don't have to, you don't have to pretend that you were born to, your parents were billionaires or millionaires, but maybe your parents just had some sort of property. Maybe your grandparents had property that was passed on. Some sort of generational wealth was passed on. That could be something that could really put you ahead in life. And but what I really feel is that the positives and the negatives that people are born with are unearned. So that includes the negatives. So if you're a person who's born in Yemen right now or somewhere else where you're born into a situation that you have a child born into that situation has no control over what sort of life they're born into. They just happen to be born there. But yet we judge people based on where they're born and where they're raised. So anyway, we'll keep moving on from that. It's a little bit too serious. So this is what I thought I was going to be talking about. So about a year, just over 15 months ago, I was asked by Alva Labs, which is a company here in the Stockholm, Sweden, to do a webinar. And I thought I would just be talking about racism. And I thought I'd be talking about pretty much the same stuff I just talked to you about now. Talking about what it was like to grow up as a person of color, what it was like to experience life with other people who are of color now, like what the situation would be like in Sweden. And then I thought I was just going to be talking about like a personal story. But then I started thinking about it, and when I was thinking about the speech, I was just thinking, well, what else, or is everything I'm experiencing just on me, or am I experiencing something that's shared by a lot of different people? And so I want to bring you to the second point of creating that change. The second most important thing you can do is do your research, which is exactly what I started to do. I started looking into what the situation was like in Sweden and what discrimination might be like right now in Sweden, even though like this is stuff happening to me, maybe this is happening to others as well. So you can do the same thing too to create your own momentum. So depending on whatever your topic is, so let's say it was climate change, and you identify that as something you feel really strongly about, start doing your research to try to get as many facts as you possibly can before you start actioning and before you start creating a solution. So I'm really going to ask all of you to interact right now. I'm going to ask you a few quick questions just to get an idea of what everybody knows about Sweden's demographics. So this is what I found out 15 months ago. What percentage of Sweden's working age population is foreign born between the ages of 18 and 67? Does anybody have like a wild guess? And you can put this in the chat, or you can just unmute and say it out loud. So these are people who are born abroad, not born in the country.
I'm going to go with 42.
42%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other guesses?
We have other guesses in the chat, which is 30, 30, 25, 35, 40, 12,
So these
14.
are all really high guesses, which is pretty good. But sometimes, like when we ask this question, so we do a lot of different workshops. And when we ask this question to people who work within Swedish companies, the guesses are much lower. It's usually between 5 to 10%, which is something more like that's sort of realistic to me too, because you just think, well, when you walk around Sweden, and especially when you're downtown or you're looking at an office, you predominantly see a lot of native Swedes there. So you just start thinking, okay, maybe there's not too many foreign born people in total. But it's actually 24%. So 1 in every 4 people of working age is foreign born. So that's born completely in a different country. When you think about what percentage of Sweden's population is foreign born or the child of someone foreign born, so this is somebody with like foreign heritage, that number jumps up to 33.5%, which is 1 in every 3 of us, which is quite high. And then when you think about the Stockholm region, which is sort of where we are more specific, who is foreign born or the child of someone foreign born, that jumps up even more. It's at 45%. So 1 in every 2 people in the Stockholm region has either been born in another country, were born in another country, or one of their parents were born in another country, which is extremely high because even in Canada, those numbers aren't so high. I know for a fact, like in Germany, it's not that high. In many other countries in the world, it's not that high. So Sweden's very special when it comes to stuff like that. But it's important for us to have that information in the back of our heads. So I don't know how many of you know this, but if you're foreign born, you're 6 times as likely to be unemployed as someone who's born here. So naturally, as soon as we started finding out this sort of information, we wanted to find out why. So it sort of led us to this next study, which is a very special study that was done just a couple of years ago. So basically what they did is that they took a whole bunch of different job applicants and put them into different buckets. So in one specific, like one bucket, they pretended as if this person was unemployed for the past 6 months. And in another bucket of applications that they sent out, they pretended this person worked for like a gig job. So like working for a Foodora, working for a Bolt, working for something temporary. And in the other bucket, they put traditional jobs in there. So, pretend the person working for Vattenfall or Spotify or something like that. Then they assign random names to each CV. So remember, these are identical CVs, and they just put Swedish names on some, and they put Arabic sounding names on the other. Who can guess what happened in terms of callbacks, in interview callbacks? Who do you think got more callbacks? even though these are
Swedish
identical.
names.
Exactly. Yeah. Can anyone guess by how much? It's a lot. So as you can see, the yellow's the Arabic, and the blue's the Swedish. So if you have a Swedish sounding name, you are twice as likely to receive an interview callback as an Arabic sounding name, even though you're submitting the exact same CV.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Were the CVs submitted in Swedish or English?
In Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah, and just with Swedish last names and Arabic last names.
Yeah.
To replace it. So, and as you can tell, it doesn't even matter for the Arabic speaking person whether or not they were unemployed before, or whether or not they they pretended they were employed and worked for like a Spotify or a Vodafone. It didn't make any sort of difference. It's almost as if the person, the recruiter or the hiring manager, whoever was at the receiving end, received the CV and kind of just threw it out without taking a look at it. So then there was one last important piece, so like one big study that we also found out about around the time of the Alva Labs webinar, and this is the one that really it really got me going. So I don't know if any of you have seen this before. This is a study commissioned by the region of Stockholm just 2 or 3 years ago now. So basically what you see is that red line moving across. Let me just double check. Yeah, so yeah, the red line moving across is the average income for somebody who was born and raised in Sweden and received, if you go all the way to the right, received their building. So basically they got their PhD. And the only thing different between them and the people on the green line is the color of their skin. Because the green line is everybody else. The red line is that they are Afro-Swedes born in Sweden, born and raised in Sweden, speak Swedish fluently, all that sort of stuff. And they get approximately half the average income as a native Swede, even though they have the same education level. So the question becomes why? Why is that? So that brings us to the next step of creating change. It became obvious to me at that time that like the actions needed start becoming clear. What we need to do for me, it became more about raising awareness, first of all, to these studies. That was my prime goal, but everything else also started to form. And this will become clear to you as well. The more you do your research, the more you find out about what the inequalities are for whatever it is that you're trying to, whatever you feel strongly about, then the action starts becoming clear the further along you go. So for us, it became clear that a holistic solution was needed. We had to work with newcomers and immigrants to help elevate their job profiles so that the excuses can be gotten rid of, basically, so no one can blame them for whatever was happening. We had to work with employers to make sure that employers were ready to hire people with diverse backgrounds, regardless of what that diverse background was. And we also had to work with the Swedish community to make sure that in general, people are more accepting of people who are different. Which brought us to my next step, which is just start networking. So once you have this idea in place of what it is that you want to do, and like I said, for me, it was I needed to get this message out there that, okay, there's these studies out there that need like a light shone upon them. And I just started networking, and it started very easy, particularly because of LinkedIn. So you go on LinkedIn, you just need to connect with 1 or 2 people who feel the same way you do, and then you can start creating your network. And I just had like one face-to-face meeting. Then, after that, it started the whole process going of starting our nonprofit organization and what it is that we're doing. Networking is incredibly important to find like-minded people who share your same vision. And this is when the train really started picking up steam. So the momentum train really started going. And all this happened. So basically, like I said, the Alva Labs webinar was in the fall 2020. So it was like October 2020. By November 2020, we were launching our nonprofit. So all this happened in 2021. We created a nonprofit organization that's there to create a diverse, equitable, and inclusive labor market in Sweden. We work with newcomers and immigrants to help elevate their job profiles. So we do webinars, we build community pages, we do LinkedIn Live sessions, we do in-person training. One of our partners is Microsoft Reactor. And we work with lots of different employers. So we delivered over 30 different, we delivered DE&I workshops over 30 different employers, including Google, Nordea, SEB, Tele2, Vattenfall, the universities, etc. So all this happened in 2021. These are some of our partners. So basically the reason why I'm showing you all this is because I wanted to let you know that if you feel the drive to try to fix something, you can do it. You can make a difference really fast. And this is the last point. You need to find a team of supporters. We couldn't do what we did without having a whole great team of people supporting us. It could be friends and family. It could just be somebody you really rely on day to day who support you through your causes and whatever it is that you're feeling, that you feel really strongly about. It's external partners. So finding external partners who share your same vision. For us was like Alva Labs and people in the beginning who really, put a lot of faith into us. And then build up your internal team. And the more you'll find this is what happens. You sort of become a magnet based on your vision. So you put your vision out there, you start talking about it more, maybe you post about it on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever, and then like-minded people are going to start gravitating towards you, and you can build up an internal team. And that's what happened to us. So this is actually an old picture. So we grew our team to 12 people. Now we're closer to 20. And all this happened in 1 year. And they're all volunteers, so I'm not going to lie. It's not like everyone's getting paid. But everybody's working because we all have the same exact vision. So we're all working towards the same goal, and we're making sure that everybody works towards their strengths. So all our volunteers work according to something that they feel really strongly about within our organization. So we have people focused on legal, we have people focused on HR, we have people focused on research, DE&I research, all that sort of stuff. And I just put this here just to show that we're doing a good job too. So like, I know this, I don't want this to seem like bragging, but this is really important. You could turn around a product or a solution really fast, and one that really, really works. And people will be impressed with what you do if you put a lot of thought and effort into it. And this is the end of the presentation, but basically build your own momentum. I know like each and every one of us can do it. If we did it, you can do it. So you build your own momentum. Oops, you can take something negative in the world and turn it into a positive. And my big thing at the end is just don't stop. Keep going. That's it. If you'd like to connect with us, you can on LinkedIn. You can follow us at New to Sweden. We post a lot of different things. We have diversity panels coming up this week. We have like the Chief Diversity Officer from SEB, as well as some other strong voices coming up on panels. We're talking about race in Sweden. That's another panel we're having on Thursday. You can follow us on Instagram, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn individually if you just want to get in touch and talk. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's been awesome to hear your story, and also to have the message. I'm also an immigrant here in Sweden. I come from the Dominican Republic, and that's half an island in the Caribbean. So I realize that I am part of your target. I know what you're saying. I believe it with my own skin. And what I've learned here is that being inclusive is intentional. You need to do it on purpose. But first, you need to understand the value that it has to be inclusive. And I think sharing this message is also very important for the Swedish community to actually understand, or this country to understand the value that it is to being inclusive in a workspace, in a community space, everywhere. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well
And
said, Michelle.
thank you. I wanted to share my personal story. When I started searching for jobs here, I got like more than 100 no's. And I'm not exaggerating the number. I'm probably being very conservative. And for me, it was really shocking and took me out of my honeymoon phase with Sweden. Like everything here is so well, everything works. But then I understood that this reality that we're living here in Sweden, and specifically in Stockholm, because we are here, there's a lot of people living the same reality in other parts of the world. So this is our little piece of land where we get to share the importance of inclusion and diversity in the workspace. So thank you, Greg, because when I arrived here, new to Sweden was also a support for me. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. If you have any other questions for our speaker, Greg, you can chat it out here in the chat or raise your hand or go to the Miro board. So I think Ebba raised her hand. You can share with us, please.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation, Greg. I really liked it. And I have two questions. One is about how you started more directly, how you presented your idea and how much you prepared before going out with your idea and trying to network.
That's a great question, Ebba. So actually, I just see Rana is here, which is perfect because Rana is actually one of the first contacts I ever had with somebody who was sort of more into what we were trying to do. So Rana at that time was running a HR agency, and she was somebody who sympathized with what we were talking about. So it just started with a simple conversation with her, actually. We met at a seminar, and then 2 days later or something like that, I contacted her, and we just started talking about what the problems are in Sweden. And it was from that conversation that everything sort of blossomed. So I don't think this is the right response, because I do think the more prepared you are to have that conversation, the more of an idea you have that's more fully formed, I think can help. At the same time, I do think having these conversations does not hurt. So even if you're not entirely sure what the solution is, you can still have a conversation. You can still get in touch with people, because ultimately for most entrepreneurs, what they find out, it's like that market research, right? The more you talk to other people, the more you can start shaping your solution based on what their needs are. So I think that also helps. So sorry, I think the stats are sort of right in between. I'm walking the line, but I think there's no wrong answer here. So you can have a fully fledged idea that you're willing to share and it's ready to go. But you can also just start having conversations, and friendly people like Rana can then help you along with like making the idea better.
Yeah, thank you. And my second question was, how do you get funding for your organization?
Yeah, so there's lots of different funds you can apply to. There's European funds, there's regional funds, there's municipal funds. We actually get funded now through private means because we do these DE&I workshops, so companies are paying us now for our work. But definitely, if there's no revenue stream for the idea that you have, like no direct revenue stream, think about building that really good pitch deck and then going for public dollars. So start going to, I'm sure for almost whatever cause there is, you'll be able to get some sort of public dollars for it. It makes it harder because it's not going to be as steady necessarily. But if there's a way to also work out some sort of private revenue stream, then I would say go for it. So what we try to do is we try to charge companies and employers, but we provide everything else we do for free to the actual regular people. So maybe there's a solution there for you as well, depending on what your idea is and what you would like to do. Charge the people who have the money, and then provide it, for everybody else for free.
Yes, good tips. Thank you very much.
No problem, Bree. Oh, sorry,
Thank
it was
you.
Bree. Yeah,
Ebba.
Bree. Yeah, Ebba.
Thank you, Ebba.
Thank you. Thank you. And Bree, you had your hand up?
Sorry, yes, I'm next. Yay.
Yeah.
All right. Greg, thank you so much for talking about this. I'm in Minnesota in the United States and in human resources. And I'm specifically curious about, I guess, sort of the saturation of organizations of your type that are doing DEI work within companies and within, you know, human resources areas, and just doing the education piece and looking at studies and research and things like that. Is this something that's uncommon in Sweden at this point? Is it in the US? It's like there's a saturation
Yeah,
point
and,
for sure.
and to be
It's very
honest,
common.
I think we're reaching that in Sweden as well. So what we're trying to do is, I mean, we know what we're strong at. We're really strong with our workshops. We are strong with these kinds of talks, but we are trying to refocus that a little bit to develop a more long-term solution that's more numbers based. But to be honest, the level of maturity for DE&I in Sweden is a little bit lower than what it is in the States as well. So yes, there's a saturation coming, but I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's coming soon. But I just think, to be honest, like nobody has the right answer anyway in the States. There are lots of DE&I organizations, but
No,
they're
no
not.
kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So like people are still developing what the right long-term solutions are, and we want to be there too, and we want to develop our own solution that works, and that'll differentiate us from the crowd.
Great. And then my second question is, as you are developing that, and there are other organizations or other people that are doing this work, what kind of networking are you doing as far as sharing kind of the best practices and, you know, tools that have been successful in the trainings that you've done, things like that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question too. So we're part of the larger network. It's like a Nordic the diversity network, and so we're part of that. And there's a lot of talks that go on there with between organizations. And what we found is that most organizations are pretty open with discussing what they're doing and what their policies are and cooperating with each other. So we're not having an issue with that, and learning from different organizations and other organizations learning from us. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. That's great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Akvel? Sorry.
No, it's all good. Akvila.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. So
Hi.
I have one reflection and one question. So I really like how you said that, you know, you were curious to find out if there are other people who are experiencing similar problems like you. And I've had that experience as well. So I just wanted to say that from my experience, it seems like from your experience, there's always at least one person who shares, you know, a similar story or experience. So I appreciate you telling us about that. And a question is that I have, how do people find you? And the people who find, like, who are those people? Have you been living in Sweden for some time, or are they like have you just moved to the country? Yeah, just curious to learn more.
Are you talking about the volunteers, or are you talking about like external partners?
Just people who are like struggling, let's say. Yeah.
So we have a very strong LinkedIn presence, like a social media presence in total. So we really started focusing on that in the beginning. So by posting like certain things that sort of attracted people who are in our situation, that quickly brought a lot of people over to us. So through LinkedIn, through Instagram now, but I mean, there's lots of other channels depending on what you want to explore. But just by posting and getting your thoughts out there, or perhaps getting a fact out there or some research out there, you know, we posted about the unemployment rate, we posted about language expectations, we posted about, you know, whatever, like the Afro Suite study, I think we posted about it twice, and, you know, stuff like that. So it just naturally brings people, so people start liking, reacting, people start commenting, and then what I would do is like I would scour that, like I would look through that list and see, and like, oh, this person's in social media or marketing. Maybe they just recently graduated from marketing or communications, and I'd be like, that might be someone who might be able to help us. I might just reach out to them and just start a conversation. Have God knows how many introduction meetings we go through every week just to get out there and just to speak to people. And then that's how we get our volunteers. And then in that same way, that's how we get external partners too. So then I can see who's interested, like pretend Rana again. So like if Rana's liking every post that we're putting out, it's easy for me to go like, I'm probably gonna talk to Rana. So then I'll have some sort of meeting with Rana, and then we'll start discussing, and then we'll start working out like a solution or something. So that happens all the time. That's basically what my week is. It's just meeting people. Yeah, almost every day.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for your questions. And I see that some people have to leave. I understand that. Me and Michelle, we thought that we will, instead of doing the breakout rooms, because it feels like it's quite a cozy little group of 20 people, we will just do this as an open space here, open digital space, if it feels good for people. Also, just to make it easy in terms of logistics for me and Michelle to try and manage it. So the question that we wanted to set, and it's probably also for self-reflection or to bring some more discussion flowing, because we still have some time if we want to use it this way. So the question we wanted to set is, what do you take with you from this talk? And this is a question that Michelle suggested, and they usually use it in Hyper Island, if I understood it right. And I think there might be some people from Hyper Island, so maybe some people thought about these before. So yeah, if someone wants to share, what did you take, or what do you take with you from this talk? We'll be very happy to hear it. Maybe Greg, you could go first. What did you take?
What did I take from real talk? No, nothing. I'm kind of curious because like this was the first time we sort of put together a talk like this, where it's talking more about like ourselves and our organization now. So I just wanted to know if it had any sort of impact at all, or is there something that we can work on to make this sort of talk a little bit different the next time? I would like to know that. And you guys can be as honest as possible. I won't take any offense. So just say what you thought. It would just help us. Ebba, did you have something to add or say?
Yes, I want to share my takeaway from this. And I, as a person that is born and raised in Sweden, I think it's really important to like also be engaged with trying to make life for other people living in Sweden better. And I think that that is a good reflection to have, that be reminded that it is hard for people that come from different backgrounds. And also that I should talk more to my friends and colleagues about these kind of problems, maybe to come up with a solution in the same way that you have, Greg.
That sounds great. Yeah, we really appreciate that. We can use as many allies as possible to try to get this across.
Yes, thank you so much, Ebba, for sharing. And I do also relate to the fact that if it is people who are maybe the majority also thinking about this, then it could be a smoother change, let's say. There was also a comment by Saga in the chat that the statistics were helpful, and I agree. Seeing the numbers somehow make my brain feel like that's actually a thing. It's not just how I feel, and it's very subjective, but maybe there is some objectivity in that.
I was quite moved by the study that was done, excuse me, around the CV applicants having exact same competences, but only their names were quite different. I don't know if this is necessarily a takeaway, but as a person of a position where I can add people to my organization and or deny them, I think I'm just going to be a little bit more mindful of these things. You know, perhaps I dismissed CVs in the past, given based on their names or where they're from, without even really knowing that I did it. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I think I'm just going to be a little bit more mindful of it in the future.
I think that's a great takeaway, Anna, because that's something we really press on during our presentations and our workshops. It's basically Most people are not intentionally mean. This is unintentional bias. This is unconscious bias at work. And you just have to be able to recognize that perhaps it's there and actively combat it. So everybody has it. I used to be a recruiter myself, which is why, I got into focusing more on the labor market. And I made the same thing. Like I did the exact same thing. I would, if there, I focused on IT. So if there was a developer that was more native Canadian who spoke English better, like you would naturally gravitate to that person. Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? Because you also think about like culture fit. Like, are these people going to fit well in the organization? And if the organization is, let's say, predominantly Swedish or English speaking, then you're like, well, automatically you have a bias to say, I think this person will fit in better, because if we just go basis on names, then I can assume that they speak fluent English. I can assume these things, right?
So just very quickly, what I would say is that to try to not to focus on culture fit, but focus on culture add. So it's not
nice.
Yeah, because basically it doesn't matter. Like, if you have everybody who's exactly the same, you're going to get exactly the same sort of response for every single solution that you're going to propose.
Hey, that's really nice.
Yeah, if you get different perspectives in there, then that's where your company's really going to benefit.
Yeah, that's really nice. Now you've made my takeaway for me.
Perfect. Awesome. Glad
Thanks.
you stuck around too. Yeah.
And now something that maybe there are other comments also in the chat with the last takeaways. One of them is commenting about the space where we're in, and I think someone is also in the same space now, which is quite funny. With Maurizio, do you want to also?
Yeah. Hi everybody.
Hey, Maurizio.
Hi Greg. I just want.
I know Maurizio.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you again for your presentation. It was really great. And during your presentation, I was thinking about all the white people out there saying that race doesn't matter, it's just a matter of merit, and if you deserve, race, people who don't see color, who are colorblind, and I told them once again that race doesn't matter only if it doesn't affect you. So it's something really important what you said, and I really like your second point, research, and I would add educate yourself, and I address that to white people, because educating yourself is the key to upgrade your knowledge and to progress and to change your mindset, and that's very important, because out there is a wide ocean of knowledge about racism and about diversity and inclusion, and it's very easy right nowadays to access this knowledge. So it's very important that we are in touch with people like you that can show us things, but it's very important that we are proactive and we take action, and we start listening and we start take action and learning ourselves.
Thanks. And just to quickly add to that too, with the colorblindness thing, if we were all colorblind, then that AfroSuite study wouldn't be, like, we would never even have that answer. We would never know that they're making half the money that they're supposed to be making if we didn't start measuring color or the effects of color. Sorry, Michelle?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I will share the same idea as Maurizio saying, that we need to educate ourselves, even if we are majority or minority, because sometimes it's hard for us being minority in some places when you are an immigrant to understand what it's actually happened and see the things with as it is, as the reality, and not as the bunch of feelings that you have inside only. So having perspective also allows you to put in the shoes of the other person. Why does this person is doing this? Is because we're not educated, either of us, on this dynamic, or it's just because that person is not educated, and how can I add to that person? Because sometimes it's not even on purpose, it's just what they learn. I come from the Dominican Republic. We are Afro-Latinos there, and we have a bunch of them. And still I see my grandparents, and they were Black, saying that they don't want Black people to be a part of our family. And it's all because of what they've been taught. So the reality is sometimes it's just ignorance. It's just that they don't know better. At least that has been my experience. I'm not saying that it's the experience that all of us will have, but educating ourselves is really important. And here in Sweden, I learned also that not getting a yes on a job because I have, my last name is Guzman. It's not just because I'm from Latin America. It's because even for a recruiter, these biases are, I have a lot of work, and just to know that the university of this person, I don't even know it. I don't know. It's easier for us to relate to what we know. So this is why this is important. These discussions educate ourselves and educate others, because it's not, sometimes it's not on purpose. It's just the easy way to go. And what you said, it, Greg, about cultural ad, that's something that I've been trying to have a t-shirt on every single meeting, because that's so important. I also have a bunch of Swedes friends saying that they hate that their company, they only have the same people playing the same sports, going to vacation to the same place, having the same conversation, and not adding to the dynamics. So
Yes.
so,
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah, you should wear that to every interview. Culture ad, like
Yeah.
that's what you represent. And to be honest, like there's just lots of problems that are not even just Swedish based, right? Like it's from country to country. There's a lot of ageism even going on. Like even I noticed that, like if you're over 50 in this country and you're trying to find work, like good luck to you. It's gonna be really difficult. So there's a lot of different ways we can try to like combat the problems facing people, and culture ad is exactly the right way to look at it, because what's that 50-year-old bringing? What's that 55-year-old bringing to your organization that a 20-year-old might not be able to bring?
Thank you so much for these reflections. And yeah, Michelle, you really, you made me feel even something more with bringing some personality. And maybe because we're in the same room, I was like, yeah. And I feel like I function much more in a physical type of event and not digital. But it's amazing that we could do this. And especially for today's meeting, I think we were lucky to hold it at all. And that was because it was on Zoom. So we hope that next event, that will be next month, will be happening in real life. And if, Greg, you have any other last comments before I start wrapping up, go ahead.
No, other than saying thank you. Thank you to everybody who showed up and who asked a lot of questions and participated in this roundtable afterwards, this discussion, because this is the best part for me anyway, like to listen to what each of your thoughts are and what you think. I think it's really important for us to have this discussion, whether you agree with it or not, to have just to talk is really important. And I hope this continues with all your events moving forward, where no matter what the polarizing topic might be, as long as people are talking about it, I think that's super important.
Exactly, yes. Thank you for bringing this conversation up, and also for making it quite personal and easy to relate to. At least for me, it felt like that.
Oh, good. Thanks. Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks so much. And yes, so some more unrelated or maybe related topics, but pretty much linked to Creative Mornings Stockholm chapter. As I mentioned, it's only two of us, Michelle and me now, and we are getting, and soon we'll be meeting new volunteers. Some of them are here already, which is very nice. Thank you for joining in. And sponsors, if you feel like you want to somehow support the organization, so not us, but this global organization and its chapter in Stockholm, feel free to reach out. On the Miro board, there's information about that. And also you can just email us, email back the email you got about this event, for example. And yeah, I just feel like for us, it's all about this community for me. And I think Michelle can also reflect on that. We cannot speak at the same time, me and Michelle, because we're in the same room, which makes it tricky with a hybrid, but I can see her doing like that. Yes. So the community is that what we made now this morning, these people who chose for some reason to be here and listen to the talk for some reason. And I think we might all have different reasons, and we will take different things from this talk. I think we would all have something, and it was very nice to hear some of the reflections and to create some new thoughts in my head on that, even though I feel like I personally was thinking about this topic for a while personally and in general, but this gave me some more discussions for myself. So thank you so much, all of you who joined in, who stayed, who discussed and shared, and see you at the next event. Enjoy your Friday, the sunny Friday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
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 Hej då.